Welcome to the Real Paranormal Stories podcast with your host, Christopher Buckner. Send your stories to realparanormalstoriespodcast@gmail.com. Royalty-free music provided by Kevin MacLeod and Tabletop Audio. And now, let's take a trip into the paranormal. This story comes from Reddit user The Walter White Effect. And this is their story. I work as a nurse at a hospital in the UK that was initially constructed during World War II and was supposed to be a temporary facility. However, that was not the case, and it was further built upon and still remains as a slightly modernized building. I recall doing a night shift during the winter time and had a patient admitted to us with an infection, but otherwise had no illness that could affect their cognitive function, i.e. dementia, learning difficulties, etc. At around 2 or 3 a.m., said patient began to scream from the side room that they were placed in. Myself and another nurse responded. Once in the room, I tried to defuse the situation and calm the patient down. All the while, the patient was screaming about how a man with a bag over his head had been standing at the end of the bed watching her. As we entered the room, I could tell something was off and felt a shift in energy, despite myself telling the patient that there was nothing to be concerned about. Once settled, myself and the other nurse that came with me had turned to leave the room and witnessed what I can only describe as a shadowy figure pass through a set of double doors outside the side room in which the patient resided. The doors are behind a bit of an alcove, so you can't see them from the side room, but once you leave the room, you can see them. After a few seconds, both myself and the responding nurse clicked onto the fact that the double doors are always locked and have to be unlocked with keys. The time it took from us seeing the figure pass through the area, and how long it would take to unlock said doors, pass through them, and lock them again from the other side would be near on impossible. Therefore, we both came to the conclusion that it was a ghost, or entity of some sort, and returned to the desk somewhat unnerved. And that is their story. This story comes from a Reddit user who wanted to remain anonymous. And this is their story. Allow me to set the scene. After my freshman year of college, my randomly assigned roommate, turned best friend, and another girl on our floor who we became very close with in the dorms, all decided to rent a house together the following year. The other girl, her stepdad flipped houses and had recently renovated this place that was 2 blocks from campus. A 3-bed that cost us $300 to $400 a month each. Really affordable for a bunch of 19-year-olds. The house itself was gorgeous, with a sunroom, a basement with a washer-dryer, 2 beds on the main floor with a bathroom, and basically an upstairs suite with a huge master and walk-in closet and private bath. The other girl took that whole floor to herself since it was her dad's place, and didn't pay rent because her family thought she was too busy with cheerleading and her sorority. That's a whole separate conversation leading up to why my best friend and I moved out. The important thing is, my friend and I had the 2 main level rooms just off the living room with a bathroom between us. I don't remember when the paranormal experiences started. I remember by October, we moved in August. It was enough that our dumbasses did a seance and had already named our ghost Claire. With all the windows closed, we asked her a bunch of questions and she moved the candle different directions for yes or no. Things were really bad for my friend and mildly annoying for me. This all happened on the main level, and the third girl never experienced anything. My friend would experience sleep paralysis frequently and wake up to a woman sitting on top of her, or see her standing in the corner near her closet. The sink in the bathroom between our rooms would turn on and off all night. For me, she would open my door and get into bed with me. The funny thing is, at first I didn't even realize it was the ghost doing that. The third roommate had a cat, and I assumed the cat was in bed pretty often. After a while, when I would feel the weight pushing down in the bed, I would keep turning around and no one was there. I'd turn my back, and a second later the weight would get closer to me. Turn around and nothing. I worked 12-hour shifts on Saturdays, and I would be so exhausted I just started to let it happen. It was so frequent, it wasn't even worth the fight to get up and close my door, or roll over and check the bed. I only saw her once. I was home alone and deep cleaning my room. The light was on in the living room and my room, creating a sort of triangle of darkness in that short hallway. I was pulling the vacuum out of my room when, out of the corner of my eye, a woman with dark hair was standing behind me. She was so real, both my roommates had dark hair, that I jumped and said, "Oh my God, you scared me," as I was turning around, and when I finished turning, no one was there. That was the first time Claire actually spooked me. My friend and I moved out a few months later due to a lot of issues with the third roommate. In the years following, whenever the experience gets brought up, my friend is near tears, talking about the terror that Claire put her through at night, whereas I joke often about how I had a ghost girlfriend cuddling me at night. I don't know why she was nice to me. In some ways, I feel bad that she revealed herself to me, and I was scared of her. She seemed harmless, just active. Then again, she was so awful to my friend, and that's also unexplainable. I think the funniest part of this story, though, is when constantly living with an active entity, you do eventually get used to whatever they're doing. Between nursing school for my friend and classes plus 30-hour weeks of work at a standing job, at some point I need sleep, no matter who's in bed. And that is their story. That's all for this episode of the Real Paranormal Stories podcast. If you liked what you heard, please leave us a review anywhere this podcast can be found.